What's up everybody, welcome back. Today I want to talk a little bit about camera shake. If there's one thing that I notice in all of my shots, it's how shaky I sometimes get. And that depends on the type of shot, of course. So if I'm holding the camera and I'm sitting here talking to it like this, then obviously there's going to be a little bit more camera shake in there because I'm sitting there walking, I'm talking, I'm doing something as I'm recording that. But when I get into the B-roll shots, which if you don't know what B-roll is, it's supplemental or alternative footage, kind of like this. That basically just adds to the main shot, which is this, or the shot that's gonna be filming me when I'm holding the camera. And when I get into those shots, I want it to be a little bit more cinematic. I want it to look a little bit crisper, cleaner, not quite as shaky. And so I was looking for a way to do that without spending thousands of dollars on a really high-end DSLR camera and a big stabilizer. And I came across the DJI Osmo Mobile 2. And I thought, if I can spend 130 bucks on a stabilizer for my camera, and that's gonna give me some more stable B-roll shots, then hell yeah, I'm gonna do it. So I did it, I bought the Mobile 2, and if you've been following along, you know that I used it out in Honduras. So one of the things I've been meaning to do this entire trip is kind of play around with the DJI Osmo Mobile 2. I wanted to get a little bit more of a feel for it before I did a review on it. And I mentioned in that video that I will link right here, that I was gonna do a full review video. So this is the full review video. Now if I had a cool intro, I would probably roll that right now, but I don't, so let's just jump right into it. So, one second. The Osmo Mobile 2. Let's get into it, let's talk about some of the features. So the Osmo Mobile 2 comes in this fancy little package. Inside the package, if you pull it out, there's actually just like a foam carrying case. Open that up, it's actually got hinges on it. Inside of that, you've got the Osmo Mobile 2. Now it's pretty simple. You've got the gimbal that kind of moves around, helps stabilize the shot, moves up and down, sideways, you know, whatever you're doing, that helps stabilize your shot. So you've got a series of buttons on it. You have the M right there. There's also the record button. This will help adjust the camera. It'll help move it around while you're using it. You have a zoom button on the side. That's where you're gonna charge it, just that little port right there. And then you also have a USB on the back here, which actually comes in handy because it will charge your phone while you're using it. So it also serves as like an external battery pack, which I thought was kind of nice, especially as I was out in Honduras and I was running around. I didn't always have access to a plug. It was nice to have the extra battery. So getting the Osmo Mobile 2 set up is pretty easy. All you really have to do is just grab your phone, stick it inside the spring-loaded clamps there, slide it down, and then you just hold the power button, and after a second it just kicks on automatically and it stabilizes the phone. So if you're holding it, you're kind of walking along and you're kind of bouncing up and down, then it's gonna keep the shot stable. It's gonna look smoother, it's gonna look crisper. DJI does actually have an app for the Osmo Mobile 2. The app will actually open up a few more of the features. You have like the hyperlapse, the panorama picture. It does open up a wider variety, but if you don't wanna use the mobile app, you can still just use it as a stabilizer. You can use the regular camera function on your iPhone. So if you wanted to do like 120 frame per second slow motion, then you can do that and you can just use that as strictly a stabilizer. For the most part, when I was using the Osmo, I was using it within the app just because I think it functions a little bit better. You can actually unlock all of the features of it. So that's what I was doing most of the time. But a couple of the scenarios that I was actually really curious about were, what about when I'm like hiking, when I'm taking really big steps up, really big steps down, and it's kind of the more exaggerated movements. I wanted to see how it would perform during that setting. And so I took it on a hike with us. In one of the vlogs, we actually went to Cayos Mayor, which is one of the bigger islands in Cayos Cochinos, and we went up this little river. We were looking for some snakes. And going up that river, we actually had bigger steps up, we had big steps down, just kind of going around boulders and rocks and things like that, trying to find those snakes. So here's a couple of shots from that. And honestly, after looking at the footage, I was actually really impressed. It kept the movements really smooth as I was stepping up even the bigger steps. And if I got really close to like the subject or a rock or something like that, then yeah, you could kind of see the movement. And obviously if you're moving up, taking a big step up, you're gonna see that motion anyway. But for the most part, it kept it really smooth, much smoother than it would have had I just been hand-holding my iPhone. One of the other situations that I was kind of curious about is just general quick shaky movements. So during our trip, we were actually riding around in this teeny little canoe, and you felt everything. Even the smallest waves, you'd feel it kind of move us around side to side, or the waves would kick us up and down. And so I used the Osmo on that too. So here's a couple shots from that. And after looking at that, same thing, it still looked really smooth. Just any of the small, quick movements, the Osmo mitigates a lot of that camera shake, so it looked really good. It looked smoother, crisper, cleaner. It just made for a better B-roll shot. As I was playing around in the app, I actually noticed there's a sport mode. So the sport mode, essentially what it does is it just makes the gimbal move a little bit faster. There's a walking and a sport mode. So I had my buddy Tyler get behind this camera, and he was filming the Osmo Mobile 2, and I had it track, because it has the active tracking mode, so you can select a subject, and as that subject moves, it'll actually follow that subject in through the frame. And so I did kind of a walking, running shot a little bit further off in the distance, as well as trying to kind of juke it out. You know, I was running side to side, jumping back and forth, trying to mess around with it and juke it out. And it actually kept up with me really, really well. There were a few times as I was getting closer to the camera when it couldn't quite keep up, but that's kind of expected as I jump really close to the lens of the camera. The Osmo is gonna have to move faster and faster, and it just can't quite keep up. But when I'm further out in the distance, yeah, it kept up super well. I also played around with it just generally walking. So I got the shot kind of along the side of this boat, and I moved and I got down towards the water, got kind of a close-up shot of the water. And I did that both with the Osmo as well as just a handheld shot, just trying to compare the two. So here's what that looks like. So you can see, even as I'm just walking closer, it's a lot harder to keep a really steady shot just using my hand. The Osmo did a really great job at keeping it smooth and keeping up with those movements as I was bouncing up and down. So I really was impressed with how it kept up with that as well. And overall, I think the Osmo is a really awesome tool. I think it's a really good way to incorporate smoother, crisper, cleaner shots into B-roll footage and kind of give it a little bit more cinematic look and a cinematic effect. But there were a few downsides and a few things that I didn't really love about it. One of those things is the gimbal is actually really sensitive to weight. And what I mean by that is I couldn't get it to work with the case on the phone. So when I had my iPhone in a case and I put it inside, it would pop up like this, and then it would just be too heavy and it would just pop down. And it became unusable. And so I thought that it would be a little bit stronger. I was a little bit disappointed that the gimbal couldn't support the weight of my phone with the case. I don't know if that's just like kind of a glitchy thing or if it was just kind of not working for me, but whatever the case, I couldn't get the Osmo to keep up with the weight of the phone. One of the other things that kind of bugged me is every once in a while the Osmo would just kind of glitch out and bug out, and so I'm sitting here trying to film, and what would happen, it would just kind of like crap out and fall down to the side, and I'd have to double tap the M button, which will actually bring it back up, it'll focus it. And so I had to do that a couple times, and that was just kind of more of a nuisance. If I was in the middle of a shot trying to get a good clean B-roll shot and that happened, it'd be more of a nuisance than anything because I'd have to just redo the shot. So I do think there are a few improvements that DJI could make with the Osmo Mobile going forward, whether it's in future versions of the 2 or the 3 or whatever. I think there are a few improvements they could make. But overall, I was super happy with it, and I do think that for 130 bucks, it's definitely worth it. So going forward, I'm definitely gonna be using the Osmo more in some of my B-roll shots, and so hopefully I can get kind of a little bit more cinematic effect in that, and it's gonna look better, it'll be more visually appealing for you guys. And for the average consumer, someone who's just wanting to get nice videos of a vacation or some family time or whatever the case, if you're just using it for fun, same thing, it works really great. It works really good for the panoramic shots. It'll actually take 6 different shots and piece them all together so it's one big smooth panoramic shot. Looks really cool. So it's affordable, it works really well for the most part. There are a few downsides to it, like I said, with the case, but overall I think it's worth it. So if you've been kind of on the fence as to whether or not you want to get the Osmo, I'd say just go for it. It's only 130 bucks, and it's helped me get much better, crisper shots, and I think it's worth it even if I was just using it on vacation. Thumbs up to DJI for making a cool product that's helped me as a video editor. I will leave a link down in the video description below for the Osmo on Amazon, so check it out if it's something you think you could benefit from. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future videos, and I'll see you around.